everybody, we got a Clash of Kings 2018 battle report today. Jose's bringing his dwarves. I've got my demons. Let's get saucing.
Happy sauce.
Thanks everybody for coming back. Jose, thanks for coming back again.
Absolutely.
We did the 2018 Clash of Kings review, and now we have a Clash of Kings 2018 game. We're playing one of the new objectives, Take and Hold, which I think is going to be pretty dynamic. I don't know what to think about it yet, but you can score in turn 3 or beyond on whatever objective you hold. So I'm hoping that once Jose kills me, I can still get a point or two. You're bringing the Wall of Iron. Are you excited about that?
Yeah, I mean, it looks good on paper. I think having a horde flanked by regiments, that works pretty good.
Yeah, for sure. Nick Williams proved that at least last year at Clash of
He
Kings.
says so, it must be true. So I'm excited to try that. Iron Resolve can help the sturdy dwarf be more resilient even, so let's see.
Defense 6, Iron Resolve. I'm scared of that formation, and Phalanx. I mean, really, it's just kind of, you're gonna have to deal with that. There's not an easy way to deal with that.
Right.
I'm bringing the Archfiend list. It has a Archfiend without wings. I've given him the Wind of Elven Kind, and then my Molochs, the new Molochs that we have with regen, and Lower Abyssals are moving at a higher speed. This was in the Edge of the Abyss book, but I don't have anything new in Clash of Kings 18, so I'm just gonna have to deal with that. But altogether, it should be pretty fun. You're also bringing the
Steel Behemoth.
Thank you, that one. Yeah.
Steel Behemoth rebumped.
Yeah.
Higher breath weapon with piercing 1. Let's see what he does on the battlefield, man.
Let's see what happens, guys. We're gonna give you the lists, and then we're gonna move on into deployment.
We'll start out with Jose's list. He's brought the Wall of Iron formation in the Clash of Kings 2018 book. This grants Iron Resolve to everyone within the unit. It consists of a Bulwarker Horde, 2 regiments of Ironclad, and a King, which he's taken with the Wings of Honey Maze. Jose's also brought a Horde of Shield Breakers, 2 Brock Rider regiments with no items, 2 Flame Belchers, an army standard bearer with the loot of Insatiable Darkness, and a Berserker Lord with Fire Oil, a Steel Behemoth, and this is the new Steel Behemoth, with 15 breath attacks and piercing 1, and the new Mastiff Hunting Pack unit. This is a new chaff, which dwarves desperately needed. I'm bringing the Forces of the Abyss today, and I have brought the Great Arc Host formation. This consists of Lower Abyssals, a horde of them, 2 hordes of Molochs, and an Archfiend of the Abyss. I've given him Nimble, as I cannot give him the wing upgrade in this formation. It grants +1 speed to everyone within the unit. The Archfiend will be moving at speed 8, and the infantry will be moving at speed 6. I've also brought 2 troops of Gargoyles, a regiment of Abyssal Horsemen with the Potion of the Caterpillar, a troop of Hellhounds, and an Efreet with the Heart-Seeking Chant. Beginning turn 1, the dwarves look at the demons in front of them and move forward. Not much to do here. Everyone just kind of makes a straightforward formation. The Brock Riders are cautious. They stay out of the range of the gargoyles to the left. Otherwise, everything just moves a straight forward up. There are obstacles and rough terrain in the way, so they do not get to move at the double here. Nothing's in range at the end of turn 1, so Jose passes the turn to the demons. Beginning turn 1 for the demons, they are facing an impregnable dwarven line. Hordes and hordes of dwarves and a lot of high defense. They're going to have to be cautious as they move forward. When we move forward as so, the infantry line just pushes straight forward, hoping to stay out of range of most of the fire. The Steel Behemoth is too close for us to really be able to move at all without staying out of its range, but I did position the Molochs there on the right to try to stay out of the way of the Flame Belcher. The Gargoyles realize that they can't block units right now, so they just move behind the units to try to hide from the flames. The Gargoyles, pictured, hide behind a hill, but are 50% on it, so they may be able to see over and get something good if those Lower Abyssals move out of the way. The Gargoyles, out of picture, are behind a rock and just stay put. They're just out of range of the Brock Riders, so if the Brock Riders were to move at all, the Gargoyles would already have the charge that they need. The Well of Souls moves from the forest to the middle of the field. He may need to commit to the right, he may need to commit to the left, we're not quite sure, so he just positions himself where he can kind of be at the most utility available. The cavalry on the right just moves forward and pivots so that they have a good range and target at something. This prevents anyone from really moving to the right flank, as they'll be presenting a flank, and the Demon Prince has moved himself in a position just toe into that forest so that he can get a shot at the Flame Belcher. He does take that shot and deals 1 wound to it. Only rolling a 3, he fails to waver or rout it, so it will be able to shoot next turn if it can find its target. Turn 2 for the Dwarves. They have a line of demons approaching on them and will need to quickly burn them out if they're going to have any effect on this line. They move forward as so. The Brock Riders pivot and accept that they're going to have gargoyles probably jump in front of them and prevent them from charging for a turn. The dogs move up and get in front of the shield breakers, trying to block for them so that the abyssals will have no choice but to charge them or shoot them, paving the way for the shield breakers to make their charge. The Flame Belcher pivots and turns so that it can get a shot inside the lake. It's out of range of everything, but it's just making sure that it can do what it needs to do. The Flame Belcher on the right moves forward with the Steel Behemoth. I made a terrible mistake with those Molochs and got them in range of the Flame Belcher. I mismeasured, so they're going to be dealing with not 1 but 2 breath attacks in the near future. The Wall of Iron just moves forward, getting close to that objective. They can't quite get there this turn, but they're close. That way that they can start scoring at the beginning of turn 3 for this objective. Shots come from the Flame Belcher and the Steel Behemoth into the Molochs, dealing an astounding 10 wounds to the unit. They roll a 10 originally, which would rout the Molochs, and then roll a 5, which does waver them. They will not be moving forward, and this will put quite a hamper on the Abyssal line in the future. This is more strain that we were wanting in turn 2. Beginning turn 2 for the Abyssals, we're already in a tight spot as the Molochs are wavered and have a tremendous amounts of wounds on them. However, they do manage to regen 3 of those 7 wounds, and then the Well of Souls transfers 5 wounds from them onto itself, bringing the Molochs down to only 2 wounds. Hopefully this will allow them to stay alive for another turn. The Well of Souls realizes that the Flame Belcher that moved up to take the Molochs is in range, and charges to kill it and recover the wounds that it has just taken from the Molochs. The Gargoyles on the far left move forward right in front of the Brock Riders. They were very careful and made sure that they weren't in charge range of the Gargoyles, but they were only an inch out, so the Gargoyles just moved forward and blocked the path. The Brock Riders will have to charge the Gargoyles before they can charge any of the infantry. The Molochs move up directly behind those Gargoyles to take a charge on something. Perhaps the Ifrit will help clear up a path so that they can kill something. And the Gargoyles on the hill just move up so that they can get a good charge on perhaps War Machines or something else later on in the turns. They're not needed at this exact moment. The lower Abyssals move forward and pivot to meet the infantry, ignoring the Brock Riders, hoping the Molochs and the Ifrit together can keep those off of us. For the most part, the cavalry on the right just stays put. However, the Archfiend of the Abyss moves to the left and pivots. He also doesn't know exactly where he's going to commit. This is a nasty little formation. Wall of Iron is not to be trifled with. We realized quickly that even a triple charge against those bulwarkers won't break them, and the regiment on the right is positioned in such a beautiful way with that blocking terrain that we can't get a double charge on it, so I can't really reliably kill that either. So what we're doing is we are just at a standstill. It's going to be a standoff for most of the game here. The Archfiend is positioning so that he can turn around and perhaps get some shots and some charges on the left flank where the Abyssals seem to be having some problems. Shots are fired from the Ifrit into the Flame Belcher on the left, and then the Archfiend of the Abyss takes some shots into the Dwarven puppies in front of them, the Mastiffs. We only deal 1 wound to the Flame Belcher. 3 are dealt to the dogs. Against the dogs, however, we roll a 6 to break them, and against the Flame Belcher, we roll a 9 to break it. So we actually waver the Flame Belcher on the left, but the dogs do hold. In melee combat, the Well of Souls deals 10 wounds to the Flame Belcher on the right, and of course, life leeches 5 off. bringing it down to a fully healed Well of Souls. We roll and do not roll Snake Eyes and bust this, killing it. And then the Well of Souls pivots to the left to perhaps set up flank charges and to stay out of range of everything but the shield breakers. If the puppies move forward, the Well of Souls may be taking a charge from those shield breakers. I measured it out, and it could have gotten out of arc if I rolled a 4 or more, but I didn't want to risk it because I'd be presenting a flank otherwise. The Well of Souls is not going to appreciate a hit from those shield breakers, but if they don't manage to break the Well of Souls, they'll be presenting a flank to some pretty nasty units, so I don't think that the dwarves are going to take it. Turn 3 for the dwarves. This is the first turn that scoring can happen, so Jose is going to get the first crack at taking out some of these objectives and getting some scores here. Now, the Wall of Iron actually moves backwards. Jose wasn't thinking about the objective at this point. He was kind of frustrated about it most of the game after this. But he moved out just out of range of that objective with his Dwarven regiment, so they are not able to score. On the left, however, it's far more exciting. I was a fool and left a flank open to the Steel Behemoth. So the Steel Behemoth comes into the flank of the lower Abyssals, and then the Shield Breakers charge the lower Abyssals, cinching pretty much a kill there. The dogs were in the way of the shield breakers. They moved forward and charged against the Molochs first, so that there was room to do so. The king came over and charged the Well of Souls, hoping to block it down and deal some damage so that it loses nimble. And then the Brock Riders are not pleased about the gargoyles standing in front of them and perform a triple charge on them, dealing overkill, but they don't really have anything else to do, so why not? Moving into combat, a ton of damage is dealt to those gargoyles, more than we really cared to work out. I don't even think we rolled dice. We knew full well that those gargoyles were going to be down to snakes. 19 wounds were dealt to the lower Abyssals between the Steel Behemoth and the Shield Breakers, which is more than I was hoping for, but you know, I realized that was pretty much what was going to happen there. 1 wound was dealt to the Well of Souls by the king, and 2 wounds were dealt to the Molochs, bringing them up to a total of 4. Against the Molochs, a 9 was rolled, and they held. Against the Well of Souls, there was no roll made, because it's fearless. Against the lower Abyssals, 7 was rolled, and then 6, both of which do break it, so the lower Abyssals were broken, and then the gargoyles were broken as Snake Eyes were not rolled. Beginning of turn 3 for the demons, it's pretty clear here that the dwarves are going to win the field, at least on the left flank. It's lost. Even with as much as I have over there, I've lost my big horde, so I'm not going to be able to have anything to tank for me. It's nasty over there. There's really nothing that I can do. He still has chaff. He has 2 regiments of Brock Riders and a horde of Shield Breakers. Steel Behemoth, Flame Belcher. It's disgusting. Hopefully I can clear some of that up this turn, but I'm still going to have this flank lost, so I realized that I can't really win the kill scenario per se, so I'm just going to have to play for the objectives. Our goal is to score objectives, and I still think it's possible that I can do that. I just am probably going to have to, bleed units the rest of the game. 1 wound is healed on the Molochs here. They go down to 3, and then I move as so. I realize I have to kill something here, or else he's just going to overwhelm me with points, so it's kind of hard to see, but the Well of Souls there that killed the Flame Belcher last turn has a rear charge on the Shield Breaker, so he goes ahead and takes it. It's kind of a tight squeeze, but we are able to get past the king with a single pivot because we're a 50mm base, square, easy to do. And then the Molochs charge the front of the Iron Breakers there. Hopefully between the 2 we'll be able to kill that unit, so that we'll be trading instead of just getting, pummeled. The Efreet moves over to take another shot, and the Abyssal Harbinger moves to the right just to make sure that everything's inspired. The Demon Prince on the left moves forward to take an objective there. Of course, the Molochs are on a hill for the objective, and the Gargoyles, again, realizing that there's no way we can really win the flank on the left, go 20 inches back and land on an unclaimed objective so that we can get a 3rd objective. And then, of course, on the far right, the Abyssal Horsemen and the Hellhounds are on top of an objective as well. So between the 4 of them, we should be able to get 4 points this turn to Jose's 1, and we're really going to need that lead because as this game progresses, it's already apparent we're going to be bleeding units, and the dwarves are going to start having a large unit strength advantage here. Shots are fired. The Archfiend of the Abyss gets a shot on the Flame Belcher there, shoots over it, and can ignore the cover due to the fact that he's height 4. The Efreet, I moved to get shots, but then forgot that the Molochs are height 2. So they were blocking every shot that the Ifrit had except for the Steel Behemoth. That's not really something we want, but, you know, that's what we get. So the Harbinger gives the Ifrit Bane Chant, and between that, with Bane Chant, we're able to get 3 wounds on the Steel Behemoth. That's exciting, right? And then the Archfiend of the Abyss gets 2 wounds on the Flame Belcher, bringing it up to a total of 3. Now, we're lucky enough to roll a 10 on that Flame Belcher, so it's broken. And then a 3 is rolled on the Steel Behemoth, so it is fine. At the end of this, we do score 4 points. That brings it up to 4 Matt, 1 Jose at the end of turn 3. The dwarves are poised for a major offensive here, and should they be able to destroy the left flank of the demons, they may not have to worry about objectives for much longer. So Jose decides to forego claiming the objective in the upper left this turn to hopefully kill both hordes of Molochs and the gargoyles in the upper right flank. Both of the Brock Rider regiments slam into the Molochs on the hill, almost assuredly gaining a kill. The Brock Rider Lord turns to the right and slams the gargoyles that were in range. He is hindered, but he should be able to take out a troop of gargoyles. The King comes into the Ifrit, making sure that there won't be any fireballs coming to them. He might get lucky and kill it, but he certainly will disorder it. And the Steel Behemoth comes into the Molochs, hoping to kill them as they're already wounded. A regiment of Ironclad goes into the Archfiend, not to kill it, but hopefully to start wounding it so that it will be easier to kill later. And then the Wall of Iron just moves forward to claim the objective by the wall and to get ready for an attack from the Abyssal Horsemen. 3 wounds are dealt to the gargoyles from the Berserker Lord. He was hindered, so he wasn't able to get many hits there. 16 wounds were dealt to the Molochs on the hill, bringing them down to a mortal wound. They'll only need Snake Eyes there. 3 wounds were dealt to the Ifrit, making sure that it won't be throwing any fireballs even if it survives this round. And 9 wounds were dealt to the Molochs, bringing them up to 12. 0 wounds were dealt to the Archfiend. That regiment was hindered, and the Archfiend is hard to wound. Against the gargoyles, the Berserker Lord rolled an 8 to take them out, but then only a 6 on the reroll, as they were inspired by the Well of Souls. That 6 will waver them, and that means that they'll be able to score on this objective for another turn, as the Berserker Lord is only an individual and has no unit strength. The Molochs are broken. They don't roll snakes either time. The King does roll an 11 against the Ifrit originally, almost destroying it, but on the reroll of the 7, because it was inspired by the Abyssal Harbinger, it only wavers the Ifrit. It certainly will not be attacking next turn, and it will have some limited mobility as well. Only 3 is rolled against the Molochs. They only needed a score of 6, but unfortunately that just didn't happen. Altogether, 3 units are wavered and 1 is routed. However, with Demon's Fury, it shouldn't be too bad that those Molochs are wavered. Ultimately, Jose scores 2 points this round, 1 for the wall that the Wall of Iron is holding. Additionally, although not pictured, the regiments of Brocks were able to push forward and claim the objective on top of the hill. That would be 2, and then the 1 that they have, bringing them up to 3 to my 4 right now. The dwarves had a frustrating turn 4, unable to kill what they wanted to kill, and knowing where I'm standing, I'm going to have to put the pressure down on these objectives to make the dwarves kind of have to go in every which direction to try to score points now. I have a point advantage, but a field disadvantage, and I'm just going to have to push that point advantage as far as I can. The gargoyles heal 2 wounds, bringing them down to 1, and the Molochs heal an astounding 7 wounds out of the 12 wounds that they had on them, bringing them down to 5. The Well of Souls takes the 1 wound that the gargoyles had on them to itself. I'm hoping if I'm lucky, those gargoyles might survive another turn. However, if he commits the Brock Riders into the gargoyles, there's absolutely no way that they're going to survive. I take the Well of Souls off the screen, it's to the left, and on an objective, that's what I did. I had a really juicy flank charge opened up to those Brock Riders there, but I decided it was more important to get a point than it was to get some damage on the Brock Riders, as even a flank charge with the Well of Souls would not break the Riders. The Ifrit doesn't really have a very safe place to hide. There was absolutely no way that I could get it away from that King because it has a 360 turn arc. So what I ended up doing is I made it take its 360 maneuver and move back 3.5 inches to where I wasn't in range of the Brock Riders, and then I took my Abyssal Harbinger and I put him directly in front of the Ifrit, blocking the king from being able to charge him. The king can charge the Abyssal Harbinger, and if he kills the Abyssal Harbinger, he can then overrun into the Ifrit, but that's the best way that I could protect my Ifrit right now. The Molochs countercharge into the Steel Behemoth, and the nimble Archfiend, he's not flying, he just has nimble, corkscrews into the Behemoth away from the regiment of Ironclad. My Hellhounds have a flank charge on that Ironclad now, and hopefully if we crack that regiment, we might be able to start working on the Wall of Iron. If we can't crack at least one of the 3 of those in a single hit, it's going to be almost impossible to break that formation, and since it's on an objective and possibly could be on 2 objectives if it reformed, it's really important that we at least start harassing it. I deal 19 wounds to the Steel Behemoth between the Molochs and the flank charge on the Archfiend. That's gotta hurt. And then only 3 wounds are dealt to the regiment. The Hellhounds were hindered, unfortunately, and because of that, they really just weren't able to get much damage to them. They ended up only getting a 3 to hit that regiment, and since they have Iron Resolve, it took their wounds down to 2 because they passed the test. However, snakes were not rolled against the Steel Behemoth, and it was broken. This will allow us to put a little bit more pressure on this left flank and maybe make it to where the dwarves don't just have free reign over 3 objectives. At the end of turn 4, I was able to score 3, 1 from the Well of Souls, who went off to go score an objective. The gargoyles are still on a lake. For how long, we don't know, but we'll take the point. And then the Abyssal Horsemen are on an objective still, and probably will just stay there for the rest of the game, because scoring is what's important at this point. At this point, I have 7 points to Jose's 4 at the end of turn 4. It's the beginning of turn 5 for the dwarves. They have the kill scenario in the bag, however, we're not playing kill, so the dwarves realize that they're going to have to claim as many objectives as possible this turn. They move forward as so. The Brock Regiment on the left charges into the Molochs with the Berserker Lord. Hopefully they'll be able to kill that. They have 5 wounds on them. That has been a very resilient horde. However, if they do break this, the Regiment of Brocks are only 4 inches away from that objective, so even on a D3 roll of 1 on the move back, they'll be able to score. The other range of Brock Riders runs into those gargoyles. They have a 100% chance of scoring there, even if they roll Snake Eyes against those gargoyles, which is pretty much the only roll that they'll need to kill them. They're a regiment on top of a troop, so they should be able to score. The regiment of Ironclad recharges the Hellhounds. They're both on top of an objective, however, the regiment and the horde overpower the troop and the monster, so that's going to be really easy to score there. The Bulwarkers don't want to charge those Hellhounds because the Hellhounds really are just harassing them, so they don't really have to kill them, and the Bulwarkers, if they did roll snakes, would be presenting a flank to the Abyssal Horsemen, which is all that they would need to break that line. What the Bulwarkers end up doing actually is just moving forward and pinning those Hellhounds in. Those Hellhounds are nimble, but it doesn't matter if they can't pivot to get around, so they are just absolutely boxed in between the dwarves. The regiment moves up just to protect the Bulwarkers. The Abyssal Horsemen now can't really get around them, so really they're just never going to have a good charge. They're probably just going to sit on that objective. Melee damage, only 1 damage is dealt to the Abyssal Harbinger from the King. That's going to be hard to break through. I don't even know if we rolled against the gargoyles. We just know that the Berserker Riders are going to kill them. However, the Berserker Riders and the Berserker Lord together only dealt 6 wounds to those Molochs, bringing them up to a total of 11. They actually might be able to hold there. And then 3 wounds were dealt to the Hellhounds. We're just kind of in a slapping match there. Not a lot of damage is being thrown one way or the other. Up there, they roll a 4 against the Hellhounds. The Hellhounds do hold. Against the Gargoyles, we just roll a ton of damage. And because of a ton of damage, they don't roll Snake Eyes, they do break them. The King only rolls an 8 against the Abyssal Harbingers. He's not able to get through that, and the Ifrit will be okay next turn for shooting. Against the Molochs, even though 11 wounds had been dealt, they do roll a 10 and then an 8 to break them. So they are broken. The Berserker Riders can go backwards at D3 and claim that objective. The other Brock Riders on top of the Gargoyles claim an objective there. And of course the Wall of Iron is on top of an objective and getting it there. That brings Jose's total score for the round to 3, total score for the game up to 7 against my current 7. So we are tied here, but it is only the top of 5. Jose is going to have to pull out, but I don't have many more units to score, so this is still anybody's game. It's turn 5 for the Abyssals, and we've got to get some of this dwarf unit strength out on the left flank. If they keep both regiments over here, they'll be able to score enough to where they can win on turn 6. That Well of Souls passed up a flank charge on the Berserk Riders last turn, but now he's looking at a rear charge, and the Archfiend of the Abyss has a flank, so what we do is he corkscrew charges in, and the Well of Souls comes into the rear of these Berserker Riders, hoping to kill them immediately. The Well of Souls picks off a wound from the Abyssal Harbinger while it goes down as well. The Hellhounds slam into the regiment of Ironclad that they've been chewing on for 3 turns now, and the Abyssal Horsemen just move forward. It's too late in the game for us to really get in a fight, so what we do is we push forward to where the dwarves will not be able to stand on that objective. Ultimately, we're just going to tank on this objective and hope that the dwarves can't kill us in the time left. The Efreet goes ahead and shoots into the Berserker Riders. Again, it's protected by that Harbinger, which is really nice, so that hopefully that king won't be able to get it. But the Harbinger also Bane Chance this Efreet, and we deal 11 wounds to these Berserk Riders. We only roll a 4 to bust them, so they are around still. If we got a high roll, that could have just been a sweep. But I'm still really pleased with 11 wounds. That's more than I should have gotten, and I'm not going to complain at all. Those guys should be able to be picked off easily next turn. We deal a metric ton of damage into the Berserk Riders. Of course, the Well of Souls leeches all of its wounds off, takes it back down to 0. The Hellhounds end up dealing 5 wounds to the Regiment of Ironclad, and we only roll a 6 to break them. Now, I want to point out that had they not had the Wall of Iron this turn, they would have actually been wavered here, so that Iron Resolve is really helping them out. They end up healing a wound and going down to 6. We don't roll Snake Eyes against the Berserk Riders and destroy them as well. The Well of Souls is on that hill and scores a point, and our Abyssal Horsemen are in the forest and scores a point. That's 2 points for this round, bringing us up to 9, and Jose is at 7 at the end of turn 5. The beginning of turn 6 for the Dwarves, they need to get as many points as possible right now, and after the destruction of the Brock Regiment Riders, he's realizing that Jose has to get a turn 7 here. Right now, the most that he can score is 3, and a 3 will only get him up to 10, and I'll be able to score 2 no matter what. So he has to get a turn 7 and kill some things. So he looks at this demon, the Archfiend of the Abyss, and realizes that if he charges his Brock Riders off of that objective and hits this Demon of the Abyss, if he kills him, he'll be able to score on that point, taking it away from the Well of Souls with only a unit strength of 1. So he triple charges it, coming in with the Brock Lord, with the King, and with the Brock Riders, hoping to kill some things, some of my more mobile units that can just fly around and take things out. Even if for whatever reason it holds there, it's going to be pinned, so it's not going to be able to get around and get to where it needs to go. The regiment, the Bulwarkers, both charge onto these puppies. They don't want any chance of them getting away, so they just slam in. They didn't want to do this before because they'd be exposing a flank, but with the regiment charging into the Abyssal Horsemen there's no risk anymore. Jose deals 16 wounds to the Archfiend. He deals more wounds than we cared to even roll out onto the puppies. They were already hurt, and now they are a red smear on the ground. The Ironclad only managed to get 2 wounds on the Abyssal Horsemen. They roll a 7 against the Horsemen. Snakes are not rolled against the dogs, but snakes are rolled against the Archfiend of the Abyss. Sad day for them, because that means that Archfiend can hit back, can strike hard, and also there's 2 of my monsters, unit strength 2, on that objective, and his Brock Riders are unit strength 2. He does not hold that objective, so there's no point scored there. Ultimately, he scores 1 point with the Wall of Iron, where the puppies were, and that's it. That only brings him up to a total of 8. Turn 6 for the demons here. We just want to make sure that we move as much unit strength as possible away from these guys. The very first thing I do is take 16 points off the Archfiend and slam it onto the Well of Souls. Between the two, I'd much prefer to have the Archfiend around. They both take pretty much the same hit, but the Archfiend can can give it back when he needs to. And then for movement, I go ahead and countercharge into the Berserk Lord. I hope that I can kill that. The Well of Souls slams into the King. It doesn't really have a whole lot more options. It could have slammed into the Brock Riders, but we're going to use the Ifrit to take that out. The Ifrit moves down, again using its Harbinger as a shield so that we can keep that King around. At this point, it would even block line of sight to the Ifrit, so it really would only have one option there. The Abyssal Horsemen don't have any other thing to do, so they just go ahead and charge the regiment. We don't care if we kill them or not. We really don't. We're just there to score. The Ifrit goes ahead and shoots into the Brock Riders. We only deal 4 damage to him this time. It's a little bit below average, maybe makes up for the 11, but it does bring him to a total of 15 wounds, and then we roll an 8 against the Brock Riders. I'm pretty sure we rolled that twice. It's double inspired there, so I would assume it got 2 rolls, but we only have the 8. Either way, the Brock Riders did break here, which clears up the only unit strength that the Dwarfs still have on this side of the table. The Archfiend deals 8 damage to the Brock Rider. The Well of Souls only deals 1 wound to the King, which only heals 1, bringing them down to 15 wounds. You know, that's a lot better than 16. The Horsemen do deal 10 damage to the Ironclads. That was a pretty astounding hit. We only roll a 4 against them, though. They heal 1, bringing them down to 13. As they hold there, due to the Banner of the Griffin on the Standard Bearer, we only roll a 3 against the Berserker Lord, so it stays and holds, and we roll a 9 against the King, but with only 1 wound, it really doesn't matter. Anyway, I end up scoring 2 points here, 1 for the Well of Souls on the objective on the hill, and then 1 for the Horsemen in the forest. That brings me up to 11 to Jose's 8. We roll for a turn 7, and there is no turn 7. So that's the end of the game.
All right, and we're back. That was a pretty dynamic game, I think. A little give and take for sure.
Yep. Very interesting scenario. Very, very interesting.
I like it, but I won, so, you know.
I like it a lot. I mean, it takes for intense tactical decisions. I mean, you're torn in between scoring and keeping a formation that makes sense.
Right, and one thing that I really like about it is even if you feel like you've lost the field, which I did almost immediately, you still have a lot of options to get in there and get your points. I don't feel like, unless you're tabled, you're out of the game.
Yeah, it feels bad when you're like winning the kill game, but then all of a sudden you're in a bad position to score.
Yeah, that definitely.
But this scenario is awesome because of that. You need to plan ahead. I think you need to plan from the deployment step
for sure
to make sure that you're going to get there at the end.
I will say, I think you kind of had the, I don't know, handicap here with dwarves. They're very slow, and my guys are zipping and flying all around you, and meanwhile you're over here just staying put. That wall of iron, though, I mean, that thing is, I don't want to touch it. We didn't actually even get to see it work because I had 2 cavalry units just looking at it and saying, nope.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you respect them, and it was good for you. You were holding that area of the battlefield, and now it's just waiting for a charge that never happened.
I think if you had a different objective, maybe you were holding 2 objectives, maybe on our left flank, or your right, my left, for the viewers, your left. Or if, you know, something else happened, maybe we're playing another scenario like Dominate, that would be a really good formation because they just don't die. Even that little regiment, the only one that we really saw, like, it got hit. I would have wavered it for sure if it didn't have Iron Resolve.
Yeah, definitely. You know? I think the formation is good. My only concern is the points spent on the Woolwalkers as opposed to regular Ironclad, which are already very good.
Yeah, sure.
But definitely, I think competitive, definitely. And then very happy with the Mastiff.
Yeah.
I think they were able to screen my horde of shield breakers, so that was good. They got to hit first. Sometimes they don't get to do that.
The Molochs were held back. That was, yeah, for sure.
I'm not sure about how to feel about the Steel Behemoth still. I mean, it got better, but still a lot of points. Unit strength 1. He hit some fives, you know. So
maybe not Bulwarkers and Steel Behemoth at the same time.
maybe so.
Maybe one or the other.
Yeah, maybe so. Sure.
I'll say I tried it. I'm not very impressed with the Edge of the Abyss Archfiend formation. You're spending 50 points, and all you get is speed 6 on Molochs. Now, I was playing against Dwarves, so maybe that wasn't the best plan, but I just don't feel like speed 6 is important on infantry, and it does boost the Archfiend up to speed 8, which is Cav, but you lose Fly, you lose Nimble, so you have to put Nimble back, which costs almost as much as the wings. I mean, it's just,
you see,
I'm not interested.
From my position, it really feel like I was threatened by that range. So it did something. It made me, you know, be more careful, make sure that I didn't get double charge or triple charge sometimes.
Check this though. Let's say that demon, realizing it couldn't have gone into there, instead of turning left, went straight behind him and turned around. How would your wall of iron have felt?
Oh, with flying?
Yeah.
Oh no, it would have sucked.
I would have much preferred that. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, no, true.
But I think the real winner here was the scenario. I think the scenario was really dynamic. Lots of fun to play. I think everybody should try this one. And I hope we see it at Lone Wolf or other GTs because it's really fun.
The most tactical scenario I ever played.
There we go.
Amazing.
All right, guys, thanks so much for coming. We'll get more Clash of Kings 2018 games to you. And until then, stay saucy.
Cheers.
Happy sauce.